Hey everybody, this is Ramon El Magnifico and welcome to episode 14 of the Famous Pipe Smoker Friday Show. Woohoo! Episode 14, that means that this is 14 weeks going. Oh man, and I keep finding some really interesting people, so I apologize for the length of this video. Anyways, let's get on with it. On this episode of the Famous Pipe Smoker Friday Show, we celebrate one of Hollywood's legendary directors, Mr. Frank Capra, born Francesco Rosario Capra on May 18th, 1897 in Bisacchino, Sicily, Italy. Capra was raised in a large family by his father Salvatore, a fruit picker and grower, and his mother Rosaria. Capra celebrated his 6th birthday alongside fellow immigrants in steerage aboard the Germania, which was bound from Italy to the United States. After settling in Southern California, Capra began his bags to riches story by hawking newspapers, selling fruit, and playing banjo in Los Angeles honky-tonks to make money. Having graduated from high school before his 16th birthday, Capra discovered that he was too young to attend college, which led to a year of working odd jobs to save up for his schooling. When he was old enough, Capra attended Throop Polytechnic Institute, which later became California Institute of Technology, or more commonly known nowadays as Caltech. Now, at Caltech, or at Throop, as he was known then, he worked as a waiter, ran the student laundry, and worked at a power plant while studying chemical engineering. Adding to his already hectic schedule, Capra began editing his school newspaper, and in his senior year served as captain in the ROTC unit. After receiving a scholarship that allowed him to travel abroad, Capra earned a commendation from the National Research Council for his chemical research on an incendiary bomb. He graduated Throop in 1918, though he still had a reserve commission with the Army. Despite wanting to go overseas during World War I, Capra was instead assigned to artillery school at Fort Scott in San Francisco, City by the Bay, where he taught ballistics and mathematics to artillerymen for the remainder of the war. But he soon caught a dose of the Spanish flu during the famed epidemic that killed an estimated 50 to 100 million people. Good grief. Leading to his medical discharge with the rank of second lieutenant. Following his army service, the unemployed engineer spent the next 2 years knocking about California, hustling a living as a gambler and selling wildest oil stocks before achieving a measure of respectability peddling Elbert Hubbard's Little Journeys door to door. Seeing an ad for a new movie studio run by Shakespearean actor Walter Montague, Capra managed to tack his way into helming his first short film, Fulta Fisher's Boarding House, in 1922. Now, this was a one-reeler based on the poem by Rudyard Kipling. In order to learn more about his new profession, he apprenticed in a film lab, eventually working as a prop man, film editor, and gag writer for director Bob Eddy, before joining Hal Roach and later Mack Sennett and climbing the ladder of film comedy. Though nowadays remembered primarily for his social comedies of the 1930s and 1940s, Capra developed his craft at the helm of a diverse body of work. When vaudeville star Harry Langdon left Senate for First National, Capra tagged along, successfully directing 3 vehicles for the popular silent comic, starting with The Strong Man in 1926, Tramp also in 1926, and Long Pence in 1927. But Langdon fired Capra and began taking control of his own career, which led to his precipitous decline. Meanwhile, Capra's big break came in 1928 when the president of struggling Columbia Pictures, Harry Cohn, made him a company director, giving him carte blanche on the strength of his Langdon pictures alone. Over the next decade, Capra directed 25 films, raising that studio almost single-handedly from poverty row to the ranks of major studios alongside MGM, Paramount, Warner Brothers, and RKO. At Columbia, Capra became known as a reliable craftsman of efficient and profitable productions, regardless of genre. His early work included military action dramas like The Silent Submarine in 1928 and Talkies, Flight in 1929 and Dirigible in 1931, all of which starred leading man Jack Holt. He also helmed newspaper stories like The Power of the Press, starring Douglas Fairbanks Jr., as well as the Barbara Stanwyck melodramas Ladies of Leisure, which came out in 1930, The Miracle Woman in 1931, and Forbidden in 1932. It was the Jean Harlow vehicle Platinum Blonde in 1931 that heralded the beginning of Capra's long-standing collaboration with screenwriter Robert Reskin, with whom his social consciousness suddenly emerged on American Madness, which came out in 1932, the prototype for much of their work to come. Their first idealistic hero, Walter Houston, is a dedicated community banker who, much like James Stewart in It's a Wonderful Life, lends money to people whose only collateral is honesty. Capra demonstrated his mastery of the medium, using overlapping speeches that emphasized the naturalistic quality of the dialogue as increased cross-cutting and jump cuts registered the panic and hysteria of the mob. However, having discovered a winning 1930s formula, Capra quickly abandoned it and risked for the bitter tea of General Yen. His most elaborately designed film that recalled the style of Joseph von Sternberg in his claroscuro lighting and exoticism, a tragic tale of a Chinese warlord who develops an unrecorded love with an American emissary during China's Civil War. Bitter Tea was considered by some to be the director's masterpiece, even though it failed to generate much enthusiasm during its release. Capra returned to Depression-era sentimentality with writer Robert Reskin on Lady for a Day, which came out in 1933. Nominated for several Academy Awards, including Best Director, Capra suffered infamous public embarrassment when presenter Will Rogers opened the envelope and said, "Come up and get it, Frank," leading the director to run up on stage to accept his Oscar before realizing Rogers meant fellow nominee Frank Lloyd, who was nominated for Cavalcade. But Capra soon made up for his faux pas with the next picture. The pioneering screwball comedy It Happened One Night, which became the first film ever to sweep the 5 major Academy Awards with snappy dialogue and the infamous scene where star Claudette Colbert hails a car by exposing her leg. It Happened One Night became a huge hit and established Capra as a major director. Following his unprecedented success with It Happened One Night, Capra began to produce as well as direct all of his projects, creating a string of celebrated films championing the common man. First came Mr. Deeds Goes to Town. The movie's message that goodness can ultimately triumph over evil was perfect tonic for the times. Once again, Oscar's fortune smiled on Capra, who won his second consecutive Academy for Best Director. He went on to direct Lost Horizon, a philosophical drama that centered on the enchanted paradise of Shangri-La. A vastly expensive undertaking, it cost more than $1.6 million, which was a huge sum at the time. Lost Horizon was plagued by cost overruns, an extra 34 days of shooting, and a disastrous previous screening that forced Capra to sizably cut down the film. But when all was said and done, the film became a critical hit that was considered one of the best of the year, while earning several Academy Awards nominations, including Best Picture. Continuing his string of iconic films, Capra went on to direct You Can't Take It With You, which helped to perpetuate the director's utopian vision of the world and reportedly became the director's most profitable film. His next movie, Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, which was also his last film for Columbia, truly encapsulated the idea of idealism triumphing over evil. Capra discovered his best representative of this ideal in the form of actor James Stewart, who played a newly elected senator sent to do battle against crooked politicians in the name of truth, justice, and the American way. Though such easy cures for the political and press corruption so visibly illustrated were not readily available, the film exhibited the master director at work, using all the techniques at his disposal to pack an emotional wallop in every scene, particularly Stewart's famous emotionally draining filibuster. Long shots, quick cuts, in close-ups, and montages that conveyed an accelerated storyline without disrupting it, complemented a stellar cast that helped deliver another Oscar-nominated masterpiece for Capra. Capra directed the last of his so-called social films, Meet John Doe, in 1947, and though the film turned a profit, Capra and producing partner Robert Reskin were forced to dissolve their production company due to excessive taxes. Meanwhile, Capra joined the rest of Hollywood in waving the flag during World War II, re-entering the service to devote his filmmaking talents to the American propaganda effort, directing important films for the U.S. War Department, including the Why We Fight series, which consisted of films like The Nazi Strike and the Oscar-winning Prelude to War. After his service was completed, Capra left with the rank of colonel and received the Distinguished Services Medal in 1945. Once back in civilian clothes, the director went to work on the perennial Christmas classic, It's a Wonderful Life, which lost money at the box office when it came out, but later became a yearly must-see Yuletide movie. Capra considered it his greatest achievement, with time having borne him out as the sentimental tale continued to improve with age. Shot under the auspices of his newly formed Liberty Films, It's a Wonderful Life was full of Capra's contagious optimism and faith in the basic goodness of people. Perfectly captured with James Stewart's iconic return to his town after thinking himself dead, wishing everyone and everything a Merry Christmas. The box office failure of It's a Wonderful Life presaged the fate of his subsequent 5 features, none of which found much success. After selling Liberty to Paramount, Capra entered the waning years of his career, directing the musical comedy Riding High, starring Bing Crosby, and another musical romantic comedy, Here Comes the Groom, also starring Crosby. After spending 7 years making films for the Department of Defense, Capra returned to Hollywood filmmaking with A Hole in the Head with Frank Sinatra. Capra next directed what turned out to be his last Hollywood film, Pocketful of Miracles, a remake of his own Lady for a Day. Capra directed his last film, Rendezvous in Space, in 1964, which fell in line with the tradition of his great wartime documentaries. In 1967, Capra and his wife Lucille left Hollywood and relocated to La Quinta, California, where the director spent the rest of his days publishing his memoirs, the name above the title, and giving lectures as a popular speaker on college campuses. Frank Capra died in his sleep from a heart attack on September 3rd, 1991, in his La Quinta home. He was 94 years old. Capra left behind a legacy as a director who made movies with simple messages which often required a suspension of disbelief in order to respond to them. His genius as a movie maker was getting the audience past that hurdle and pulling mercilessly at the heartstrings. Francois Truffaut once said of him, in recognizing the facts of human suffering, uncertainty, anxiety, the everyday struggles of life, Capra, with his unquenchable optimism, was a healing force. This good doctor, who was also a great director, became a restorer of men's spirits. There you have it. My thanks to Turner Classic Movies for the bio. Thank you very much for watching, and if you enjoyed this episode, please go ahead and hit that like button. Subscribe to my channel and follow me on Twitter and Instagram at VL Magnifico. And until next time, may God bless you all. So long, and thanks for all the fish. Ciao.